What is up, guys? Don't forget to subscribe. Check out my channel playlist for individual tutorials on logic, sculpting, animation, music, and more. And check out my game Linger on the Dreamverse. If you want something to play, just look up my Young Text YouTube profile on Dreams for Dreams content. Check out my channel playlist for individual tutorials on logic, animation, sculpting, music, and more if you're rushed on time. So this is how you make bosses in Dreams PS4. Put the current health of a health manager or whatever symbolizes your health for your creature into the A of a calculator. On the B of the calculator, this is what happens whenever your health is less than that amount. A result will happen, and that result will power on this keyframe. Make sure the keyframe settings are on keep changes. When this keyframe power is on, it's going to turn off your first line of attacks and turn on your second line of attacks. So these lines of attacks should be on whenever the battle starts. These should be off. This is how you turn them off. So you want to turn all three off by selecting all three like this. Then you want to make sure these are on. So, whenever the boss detects things, and this is for short range attacks, this is for long range attacks like bullets, this is for mid range attacks. Whenever that senses things, it will either make your emitter turn on or your action recorder. The action recorder and animation settings is how you'll make some lines of attacks. The puppet animation recordings will work the way you think they will as long as you don't put them in a timeline or maybe even the puppet logic itself of a microchip. The timeline is how you put keyframes together as well as action recorders. So the action recorder will record whatever you do. Whenever you press L1 and X, you can look up my how to make animation settings or tutorial on my channel playlist. The hardest part about making bosses is just making the battles look good. If you want to test all this out, just search up someone else's creation with like a sword or something, because that's what this right here is for. It's for like your sword slashes, your melee stuff. That's what this is for whenever it comes to the pink animated stuff. The emitter is for like bullets and stuff like that, as well as shock waves or anything else you think it could actually work with. Maybe a lightning bolt from the sky. That's what your emitter is for. What I like to do a lot of the times, what you're going to be doing, if you're not sending your blast out somewhere, what you'll want to do is put this on 0 if you want it to actually come from a specific point. And then you can either make it rotate, put it on once, time between emits if you need cooldown between the times between emits, emitted object lifetime. So make sure this is as long as the animation is for your emitted object. If your emitted object has animations, max emitted at once, you'll probably have this on 1 unless it's just a simple blast. Max emitted, you'll probably have this on 1. Oh no, you'll want max emitted on infinite. Then you'll also want it to emit with wires. That means if your blast has logic with inside of it, if this is on, that logic will be there. So if you need to make it to where the blast 4 supplies something back and it has that logic within it, this will make sure that logic is kept whenever it's emitted. You can do other options here also. This is how you'll get it to launch forward, and this is how you'll like choose it, and this is how you can choose the direction. The next thing you need to know, and just look up my how to make health if you want to know how to make a health bar tutorial on my channel playlist. You can look up a whole bunch of stuff there if you want to know how to make a health bar for things. But the next thing that's important for bosses as well as games in general is your impact sensor. This senses impacts. What impact sensors are for is collision events. So your labels, right now this is labeled as friend because I chose that as the label. Right now this block right here is labeled as unlabeled because this block actually is not labeled anything, so the default label is unlabeled. What this object right here collides with. So if I was to do this, So now you understand the impact sensor, how this is going to work. Well, you understand collisions and labels. This is the hitbox for the impact sensor. You can choose to make it as big as your object or your puppet. And if you don't want it to be collidable at all, just pick this. So your impact sensor, it can sense the impacts of what it's touching. So right now, I think it can sense, if I have this connected to this, it can sense if I'm touching unlabeled. Yes. So we can make damage occur with impact sensors with this knowledge. This is how you can get things to lower in health. So if you're using a health manager, make it to where whenever this impact is sensed, the health manager lowers the health for your character. And that's how you can make damage for either your boss or your character. And you can also use, this is what you'll be using for health. You can either use a counter, the health manager, variables, score. I think that's it. I think that's what you'll be using to symbolize health. Just look up my how to make health bars tutorial. It's like literally the easiest way, and you'll be using a counter to do it. What you want to do is make it to where this increases the count whenever it's touching, like so. And then I found a way to turn this into a health bar with this. You can make your RPG games with it also. Another thing you can do with the keyframe, as the boss gets harder, you can actually make stats raise. So if you want it to get faster and stuff like that, you can actually change the variable with the keyframe. You want keep changes on, just like the other one. And then you just raise the variables. And as you can see, we could see it's changed by clicking on it. Now look, and now if I unclick, it's not there. That means that the thing has changed. Make sure it's on keep changes. You can use more than one calculator, so as the health gets even lower, more sets of attacks can start through the trigger zone, through the detected settings, plugged into the power. Make sure you check out my first video on how to make bosses, because it explains in depth a whole lot more, such as how to make bosses easier in fighting games, like difficulty settings. If you wanted to make difficulty settings, you could do all that, and explains a whole lot more ways to do this. That's why that video is so freaking long, guys. So make sure you check that out. So, where were we? We're just about at the end here, and I lost my train of thought, but this is pretty much it. If I was on the part where I was talking about the calculator, this is how you would do this. You would just clone, well, you don't have to clone it, just pull out another calculator, connect it the same way as this, and just make the health lower than this amount right here. Make this amount lower for the second set. That turns off all this right here and turns on a new set of trigger zones. You might have to also make that keyframe turn off the last calculator that was used with keep changes on. If you need to learn how to animate to make your attacks look cool, just look up my animation tutorials, because really, again, the hardest part is just making the boss fights look good. You can also make it to where the boss can pick up objects and throw it at the character, such as if the scenery is changing as the boss loses health, you can make the boss fight with environmental changes, or you can make the attacks change to where it can recognize jump attacks and stuff like that, depending on how the character's fighting style is, by just moving this around. And it can actually make the gameplay a whole lot easier or harder depending on how you're creating it. Maybe the boss gets easier as it's losing health. There's just one more thing that I want to touch on. The follower object, the follower gadget. So, you may not want your bad guy to actually follow your enemy at the start, but this is how you get your boss to follow. Just pull out the follower, Put the tag name in there. Make sure your Puppet microchip has a tag inside of its logic, sort of like this is placed in here. It'll look just like this whenever you place it into the logic. Then just name it. Put that name right here, and you can make your boss follow, and then you can make this setup with the keyframe also, to where the boss then follows the object. You may or may not want that for certain setup types. This is the easiest way to make bosses in Dreams PS4. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Just check out my channel playlist for more, and check out my Young Tech's YouTube Dreams account, as well as my content for more Dreams content. Polybius, the FPS scary freaking game, is coming out soon, and I already have Linger out, as well as artwork for you guys. If you guys want art tutorials, just say the tutorial you guys want in the comment section. Thank you guys so much, and peace. When you're using these trigger zones, make sure you have a keyframe that turns off all the other trigger zones within the set whenever a trigger zone is detecting the character. You'll see why, because this symbolizes long range, short range, and mid-range attacks. All you have to do is make it to where it turns off. Make sure it's not on keep changes, and that should be all you have to do. Let me know if that's not what you have to do in the comment section below, and we can use some calculators to figure this out.